And welcome to the Filthy Liberal Scum podcast. We are now in video and color and live.
Ooh.
All right, we're not really live. This is
Color.
recording.
Color.
Pretty.
Dark lights, though. Not
Now you can see my scruffy face. All right, so here we have the Mike Murphy,
Hello.
the fat smug bastard,
Sarge, there's a woman in my foxhole!
and me. Hi, your host, the Filthy
so
Liberal.
cute.
All right, so we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today, and since we completely just lost 60 minutes of recording blank air, we're going to start from where we left
You
off.
weren't supposed to tell!
Good job.
Honesty is the best policy. No, really, I didn't.
We've been blathering for 16 minutes and you didn't hear any of it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to start off where we stopped, and we'll get back to the other stuff in a little bit. All right.
Time for a minute.
Yeah, but Hillary Clinton in the Benghazi hearing, which was absolutely ridiculous in every way, shape, and form. I did get to see my representative, though, Grace Meng.
Yes.
Was up there, Meng the Merciless. I was quite pleased to see her.
Ask you what restaurant.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm kind of new in town.
She seemed nervous and uncomfortable, but that kind of happens when you're in the spotlight for the first time like that. But
Yeah, I like people being supportive of the party, but that was a little easy for the Republicans to make fun of.
just a smidge. there was a bit of sucking up there.
She should have spent her time talking about Clinton's foreign policy accomplishments and
Yeah,
saying
right.
snarky
Yeah,
things
exactly.
like I like.
Yeah, I mean,
On the other hand, the Republicans more than
Kissing
made up for it by making complete asses of themselves and having their asses handed to them by Hillary Clinton. I mean, it was insane what she had to go through, and the level of disrespect was really pretty impressive, actually. If I can only imagine if Democrats did that to a Republican, and I'm sure they have, but I'm sure if they did it to that level, Fox would never shut up about it. It would be insult gate or something. They should be impeached. Oh, blah 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 blah.
It's yet another example of how the Republicans change the rules to suit themselves, right? So the way the Senate has always run, senators are more respectful of former senators and always give them an easy time. And of course, whenever a Republican is before the committee, they always follow that. And of course, when a Democrat is before the committee, all of a sudden, it's, no, we don't give any special treatment to senators. Now, I'm not saying I'm in favor of giving special treatment to senators, but I am in favor of following the same damn rules.
No. It's only okay if you're a Republican. All right, we're going to listen to a little bit of Rand Paul here, and we'll comment on it as he's
Showing
blathering.
complete disrespect.
Thank you for appearing, Secretary Clinton, and I'm glad to see your health is improving.
That's like the only nice thing he says this entire
Well,
time.
Yeah, no, that's a backslap.
There's
That's
a little bit of Stark there.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't fall down again and hit your head.
Yeah,
you ass.
concussion gate.
Well, mind you can't.
Blood clot gate.
But you can't refake a blood
that
clot
was
in your
that
brain,
was
right?
a dog whistle to the World Nut Daily community on
Yeah.
her not really being ill.
Of course, the fact that she's there in the first place, it's like, okay, so she had a few weeks. Didn't really make much of a difference, did it? But
One of the things that disappointed me most about the original 9/11 was no one was fired. We spent trillions of dollars, but there were a lot of human errors. These are judgment errors, and the people who make judgment errors need to be replaced, fired, and no longer in a position of making these judgment calls.
it's interesting that he'd say that so many years later. I wonder if he would have said that at the time if he was a Republican and it was the Bush administration. I'm thinking he wouldn't have. Anyone disagree?
Well,
Anyone disagree?
At the time, you kind of rally around the president, and you kind of keep your mouth shut.
Well, no.
Rally
You round around the Republican president. If it had been a Democratic president, the Republicans would not have rallied.
Initially, you kind of have to rally around the guy.
Bullshit.
Even if you hate his guts. No,
Okay,
in
you're
all fairness-
forcing me to take Rand Paul's side here. If you look at the Paul brand, right? Because Rand Paul is really an extension of the Paul brand. And Ron Paul was the standard bearer back then, and Ron Paul was very critical of the Bush administration and everything relating to 9/11.
Yeah, but no one listened to him.
And in fact, Ron Paul, and I'm sure Rand Paul does it, kind of gave plenty of reason for plenty of dog whistles towards the idea that it might have all been a conspiracy. A lot of Rand Paul supporters and Ron Paul supporters are truthers. So, hard to say.
Truther equals psychotic. Okay, let's move on.
True, but
So we have a review board. Review board finds 64 different things that we can change. A lot of them are common sense and should be done, but the question is, it's a failure of leadership that they weren't done in advance, and 4 lives were cost because of this.
Plus a bunch of Libyans. They never
no,
mentioned.
only 4 lives.
No, yeah, Libyans don't count.
They don't count.
The Libyans who died defending our people don't count.
That's right. They don't count.
And that's a bipartisan thing. That's both sides do that. No one ever mentions how many Libyans.
Both sides do that because Democrats are wussies.
Yeah, well, that too.
That's why. Because Democrats should be carrying the flag on the idea that a human life is a human life. But
but then they get accused of sympathizing with foreigners. Or
you don't love our troops enough.
Yeah.
Oh, how many Libyans were killed?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't find a real solid number on it. I mean, I found a couple different numbers. I mean, back when it first happened, but nothing concrete.
Now, mind you, we're relatively popular in Benghazi only by virtue of the fact that Obama pretty much saved Benghazi from being destroyed by Gaddafi during the revolution.
Well, they should still be mentioned.
First of all, he's a clown for calling it, for making it sound like 9/11, and then he says 4 lives were lost.
Well,
how many things cost more than 4 American lives since 9/11?
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're accepting responsibility. I think that ultimately, with your leaving,
I like the way she's sitting just like this right now, like
the worst tragedy since 9/11.
Whatever.
And I really mean that. Had I been president at the time,
wait, I'm sorry, wait, hold on.
The culpability for the worst tragedy since 9/11.
Benghazi is the worst tragedy since 9/11.
Maybe.
Never mind. Newtown. That was 20 children, 6 adults. That didn't count.
Aurora, Colorado, and all that. Well,
none of those counted. None of those counted.
Newtown was
or the entire Iraq War. As you
no, that doesn't count either because that was started by a Republican. It doesn't count when it's started by a Republican.
All the other embassy attacks and bombings. And under George Bush.
It's kind of foolish comparing tragedies. They're all terrible in their own ways. So
but I mean, he was even more ridiculous the first time he said it. He said the other 9/11,
as if the Iraq War never happened. That's what gets me.
The first 9/11,
as if all those years of warfare in Iraq. Oh, what's that about? Oh.
Okay, let's move on.
And I really mean that. Had I been president at the time, and I found that you did not read the cables from Benghazi, you did not read the cables from Ambassador Stevens, I would have relieved you of your post. I think it's inexcusable. The thing is that, we can understand that you're not reading every cable. I can understand that maybe you're not aware of the cable from the ambassador in Vienna that asked for $100,000 for an electrical charging station. I can understand that maybe you're not aware that your department spent $100,000 on 3 comedians who went,
oh my God, $100,000! No!
No, would Connie Rice have gotten this treatment? No. If you were pulled before them, it's like, listen, you explain yourself.
By the way,
were you at NSA and you had that report saying that Bin Laden was determined to attack the United States?
No, by the way, this is a trick the Republicans play every time there's a Democratic administration. Is that when they are when they're in the White House, they will spend whatever they want on whatever ridiculous frivolities they want. As soon as a Democrat is in the White House, they will watch every penny of the budget for anything that can be made fun of. If there's a cake anywhere anybody bought, they're going to make fun. Oh, you needed a cake? The American people had to buy cake? Democrats take it. Democrats sit there and they get on the defensive and they're like, "Oh, we'll stop buying cake."
And they just play into the whole myth that Republicans are fiscal hawks. It's like, yes, you're a fiscal hawk when you're not in power. As soon as you're in power, you're a drunken sailor.
Instead of saying,
a whorehouse.
George Bush bought 5 cakes. Let me know when you're going to prosecute him, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay.
To India on a promotional tour called Make Chi Not War. But I think you might be able to understand and might be aware of the $80 million spent on a consulate in Mashar al-Sharif that will never be built. I think it's inexcusable that you did not know about this and that you did not read these cables. I would think by anybody's estimation, Libya has to have been one of the hottest of hot spots around the world. Not to know of the request for securities really, I think, cost these people their lives. Their lives could have been saved had someone been more available, had someone been aware of these things. You
mean like the Republicans when they said no to the increased budget for security?
I mean, you cut money for embassy protection. Something terrible happens. And
oh my goodness, I don't understand.
Oh, this is terrible. How could this have happened? Yeah, I know.
And that's like a Republican pattern over and over and over. It's like they cut money to education. Well, I don't know why the schools are failing. Yeah. We should have privatized schools. Hey, let's cut money to Social Security and Medicare. I don't understand why these programs don't have money. We should get rid of them and privatize them.
Yeah.
Now they're even pushing it with the guns and the cops. It's like, oh, well, all these cuts to the police. People really should have their own guns to keep themselves safe because the police just can't do it for you anymore. It's like, well, Why is that exactly? You know, there's some towns that literally had to fire their entire police department.
And fire departments.
And fire departments are just like, well, we don't understand why these things aren't getting taken care of. We should privatize it. You know, it's like you create the problem, you complain about the problem, and then you fix the problem by privatizing it. It's like, yeah.
And the privatizing doesn't save you money. Actually,
it costs more money, but it makes a profit for somebody.
See, now this goes into my idea of Republican disaster zones. I say let them take a whole bunch of red states and encourage them to do as much of this as possible, so we can just laugh at Texas when they try to privatize their entire state police force, and they end up with total mayhem and chaos. When they pollute the Gulf, let them do all the oil drilling they want in the Gulf. When they pollute it absolutely, we mock them when they lose all the tourism money, and we get it on the East and West Coast, where we forbid drilling absolutely.
Yeah, but do you really want to see Texas
yes.
turn into a third world country?
Yes. If it saves America, yes.
Except for
it's not going to save America.
What's
you're going to have a brown state. There'll be a whole one giant brown field. You know.
That's good.
That's fine.
It's good because look, the reason a lot of liberal reforms of the end of the 20th century occurred was because Adolf Hitler overstepped conservatism. A lot of things when Martin Luther King got up and said we should have civil rights, one of the things people kept pointing to was, yeah, well, that's the opposite of what Hitler was doing. You need extreme conservatism to show why liberalism is important and why liberalism is good.
And why conservatism fails.
Yeah, you have to let them fail in some places. And if the people in those states are voting for those things, I say if I were the Democratic president, I would completely get out of their way. I would make their governors sign a waiver saying they wanted this, they want freedom from the federal government, they want to nullify federal regulations in their states, and I'd let them go to town. If the people of those states are voting that way, I would let them go to town. Let them destroy their own state. And then mock them for it.
And then they'll come back on their hands and knees, covered in open sores and scabies.
Oh, the first thing...
Please, I need help. Oh, my God. I can't feed myself and my children. You know,
I've said before...
And they will break down.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, okay, here's some food.
I've said before...
Here's some blankets.
The first thing I would do if I were a Democratic president is I would take Air Force One to every single red state, and I would set up a press conference with a piece of paper in front of me asking the governor, hey, we don't want you to be takers. You know, we know how you feel about makers and takers. So I just want you to sign this saying you don't want one more federal dollar than you take in. So you will get the same exact number of federal dollars you take in. You sign this document.
The end American socialism now.
Right. The end American socialism now.
Whatever money you give to the feds, you get back.
Look, we crazy blue states, we like sharing the wealth a little bit, so we're going to keep doing that amongst ourselves. We don't want you to be forced to be included in that. So if you don't want a single dollar more than you put in, you want exactly what you put in.
We'd be very happy to take our money back.
We'd be happy not to give you that money. And I would make each Republican governor sign that right in front of me or admit that he likes socialism.
Yeah, you can pay for your own ambulances, damn it. Your own police officers in schools.
Either sign it or admit you like socialism. And
these are very angry people. Damn angry liberals.
Let them destroy their own states.
All right, let's go back to an angry Republican.
We're on top of the job.
Like angry idiot.
And the thing is I don't suspect you of bad motives. The
yes,
review board said, well, these people weren't willfully negligent. I don't think you were willfully. I don't suspect your motives of wanting to serve your country.
I think you're just an idiot.
But it was a failure of leadership not to be involved. It was a failure of leadership not to know these things. And so I think it is good that you're accepting responsibility because no one else is. And there is a certain amount of culpability to the worst tragedy since 9/11, and I'm glad you're accepting this.
Now, this entire thing was a hit job because they're terrified of her running in 2016.
Yeah,
they are absolutely horrified by the concept because if she runs in 2016, ain't nobody going to stand up to her.
They're trying to bloody her for 2016. Well,
nobody's going to be able to stand
American
up.
people have very short memories, and 4 years from now,
4 years is a very long time.
Will people really remember this hearing? Probably not.
No, but they won't stop. This will just be one thing after another after another after another.
And I think she fared well. I think she.
Oh yeah, no, she totally slapped the shit out of them.
The impression that I got was that she seemed to hold her own, and
I'm glad that she got angry.
Yes,
that's what people remember her of. Like, it really doesn't really matter if these guys planned it within minutes or within weeks. They still executed it. People still got killed. And there was a video, not for nothing. There was a video of some idiot, who made this disparaging movie about the Prophet Muhammad.
Well, no, it wasn't even that. There were riots in other cities about that at the same time. So there's no particular reason. There was no reason for them to suspect that it wasn't related to that.
Exactly.
I still am under the assumption that the riot was an organic riot, and you had a bunch of people who had been planning this, and there's a riot! Quick! Do it! Right. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of other people running around screaming and yelling. This is the perfect time to do this.
I still think that Susan Rice got a bum deal. I think she was told basically what the CIA.
Well, she was given. Well, yeah, she was given the intelligence. She repeated the intelligence, and she got lambasted for repeating what she was told.
And she was simply a messenger. And I think
God forbid.
I think it's been terrible that she's been lambasted as being a part of some kind of conspiracy to deceive the American people.
I think part of the problem is you have to be careful when you answer a question. What people think you're implying, right? So. If you imply that it's perfectly reasonable for the for somebody to think that these are happening at the same time, you're implying that the other part is true, which is the administration dictated the intelligence. And what should be pointed out first is the administration put out what they were told by the intelligence community. They didn't make it up. The intelligence community told them something, and they put out exactly what was said. That isn't Hillary Clinton. That isn't Susan Rice. That isn't any of those people. Those are our intelligence agents. And if you want to come down on them every time they get something slightly wrong, good luck trying to run an intelligence community.
Yeah, seriously. The whole idea is that they're not going to be perfect. No one knows everything.
Look up the Pinto and how it got past Lee Iacocca. It got past Lee Iacocca because they were afraid to tell him that there was something wrong with it. If you want to create an intelligence community like that, we will miss a lot of our intelligence because they'll be afraid to look up. They'll be afraid to look at anything unless they're absolutely sure it's true.
Well, look at something close to home. Like what happened in Newtown, Connecticut. We didn't know all the facts about that shooting until like 2 or 3 days after the fact. This is something that happened. One guy by himself,
and we still didn't know all the details that quickly.
In the United States itself, and the following day, you expect, we didn't know, all the details behind that, and you're expecting us to know what the hell happened in Benghazi, Libya, in a chaotic situation instantaneously, and you're shocked that that Susan Rice went out there and gave. Information that wasn't completely correct. Community. And
one thing about the Newtown, by the way, is one of the rumors that were going around that he was autistic and that had something to do with him going violent. Autism does not make people shoot anyone. Anyone who says autism makes you violent is a fucking moron. Just wanted to point that out.
It looks to me like autism could make Justin shoot someone.
Yes, autism would definitely make me shoot someone. The point
I'm trying to make is that we didn't have all the facts immediately available for in the days after the shooting in Connecticut, and you're expected us to have the same kind of level of decent, of proficiency following an incident overseas in a troubled third world country. I mean, come on.
Now, Rand Paul wasn't done. He still, he had this particular gentleman. Now,
stop trying to sneak out of the frame. Get in here.
Woo! No, and this is where you find out that Rand Paul.
Look at him trying to sneak out of the frame. Stop. Look at him trying to sneak out of the frame.
This is where you find out that Rand Paul suffers from the same disease that most Republicans suffer from. He gets all his information from inside the bubble.
Yeah.
Inside the conservative entertainment media bubble.
Yeah, Newsmax.
So
World Nut, whatever they call it.
World Nut Daily.
World Nut Daily.
Now my question is the U.S. involved with any procuring of weapons, transfer of weapons, buying, selling, anyhow transferring weapons to Turkey out of Libya? To Turkey?
Yeah, she seems.
The look on her face is priceless. You really, I gotta, you know what? I'll put this on the YouTube channel as well. You have to see the look on her face.
Yeah, she was really surprised.
She had no clue what he was talking about, and it wasn't. It was like she didn't know how to answer. But actually, just how she answered.
I will have to take that question for the record. Nobody's ever raised that with me.
This only exists on right-wing websites. That's it. It's nowhere else. This exists with the same group of people who are absolutely convinced that the vapor trails from airplanes are a government conspiracy. Okay, so here's Rand Paul out there, senator right there, talking on national television, big deal, and he blurts out a World Net Daily conspiracy, something he saw online. He got it because this isn't even on Fox. This isn't even a Fox thing. This is purely the blogosphere, this is what the Republicans have.
Well, if you
have
surround
sung to.
yourself with clowns, after a while you start speaking their language.
You start honking your nose
Yeah,
and putting on weird makeup, and it's just like it's just and the reason she was so confused because literally, if you are not in that bubble, you have no idea what he was talking about. Nobody who was watching that who was not in that bubble. They all said the same. Like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah, no one reported. No credible source was saying that.
He literally
Libya is somehow funneling weapons to Turkey.
He was quoting a WorldNet daily conspiracy
in order to fund people in Syria.
Absolutely fucking
I'm
humiliating.
just curious, what side are they allegedly funding?
Who knows?
See, that's the kind of thing she should have said. So which side do you think?
Are we supporting the rebels, I assume, or are we supporting...
Just so that we get it on the record, we're also not sending any weapons
Bashar
to Mars.
al-Assad? I mean, what the hell?
Martians receiving no weapons. We're not building a Death Star.
All right, let's move on.
We're going to move on. All right. Obama just had 3 of his recess appointments overturned from January of 2012. And they just got overturned over this past week, Friday.
I think you can overturn a recess appointment.
And honestly, no one's ever done it before.
Well, no, the problem is the Republicans had a logistical trick that they proposed that they were never really recessing. So what the judge is ruling on is this idea of whether or not that trick should work. And of course, any rational human being would say, you don't get to suddenly change the separation of powers, and change the balance of power in the United States government just because you feel you don't want the rules to apply to you the same way they did to the other person last time.
We have 100 years of precedent. Recess appointments are not a new thing. It's not like Obama invented
No, and
this
I can imagine that if the Democrats tried doing this to a Republican president sometime down the road, the Republicans would scream bloody murder. Like,
or they would
tyranny!
come up with another way to change the rules so they could do it.
Right.
Because, it only counts when a Republican does it. And this guy, the judge that did it is Judge, I think his name is Daniel Santelli. And he is the rightest of the right wing. He's like living proof that the parties are not the same. And I wrote this, and I made sure to point it out. Like, liberals who still say both parties are the same, as far as I'm concerned, are absolute fucking morons. There's no way to sugarcoat that.
Well, people are lazy. They don't.
I'm talking about
people who know what they're talking about.
Right.
I'm talking about people who, I get people on my page. Most of the liberals on my page are not like the lazy type liberals who just like pay attention once every 4 years. These are people who they read the articles, they comment on a regular basis, and they have very sure opinions. And generally speaking, they vote for Jill Stein. But as far as both parties are the same, those people now are officially, in my book, forever labeled as fucking morons. And the reason for this is because when you have Republicans in charge, they do 2 things. They keep appointees from being appointed, and they keep positions from being filled. So that will hobble or cripple agencies,
right?
Like specifically like the ATF. Like the more they can cripple an agency, the less it will regulate the industry, and the more the industry can make, and more they will donate to Republicans. Mm-hmm. Democrats do not do this. Republicans also like to keep judiciary seats open, as many as humanly possible, waiting for a Republican president to come in and appoint a whole bunch of ideologues.
Yeah, right.
And people, so they can appoint people who don't agree with the American people on anything.
Right, and that's where you get people like Santelli.
They're looking to fill every judgeship with a Republican appointee, have all the courts be as conservative as
but you see, you're softening that up. What they're looking to do is they're looking to put people into those positions who do not agree with the American people on anything. People who have crazy positions on women, on gay people, on minorities. Yeah. People have positions that would not pass muster with the American people at all. And the reason why they get away with some of these appointments because Democrats do not make a big enough issue out of what judicial rulings are coming down from Republican judges.
Nope.
And if Democrats made more hay over that and had more press on that and showed people what kinds of decisions these people are making, the Republicans would be laughed out of America.
And the problem is that when these decisions are handed down, people don't make the connection that the judge who did it comes from Republicans. They came from the Republicans. They don't make that connection.
We're the only ones who know who the judges are.
But that's what I'm saying, though. The Democrats
or the Democrats,
and the media should be saying, it's like, the whole idea that Obama doesn't have the constitutional authority to do what the Constitution says he has authority to do, that comes from a Republican judge.
Right.
He's not a neutral judge. He is a Republican judge.
He's conservative.
And as much as Republicans scream about activist judges, they love activist judges.
You want to know how it should be done? Look at Iowa. Look at what happened in Iowa a couple of years ago when they didn't like the gay marriage ruling, and they went on a campaign against these judges. Yeah. And they actually got 2 of them ousted. Now, luckily enough, in Iowa, the tide of public opinion turned, and the last time they tried to oust a judge, they failed. But if Democrats did the same thing, and Democrats made hay of what some of these judges are doing in some of these states, and really broadcasted out loud some of the things they're saying, and made an issue of it, and made campaigns out of it, you know, you're not going to have the tide of public opinion changing on the idea that women deserve to get raped because they dress funny. You know, like, you're not going to have public opinion change on that stuff. And these judges will be, you know, will have to step down and be removed, or the governors of those states will not get reelected.
And now, specifically Santelli. Santelli was involved in the Iran-Contra gate back in the 80s. He overturned the convictions of Oliver North and Admiral Poindexter. Right? Yeah, he was an admiral. He overturned them because, you know, even though they did it, he didn't think they should have to pay for it. I mean, you know, they were working for Reagan, and
let
them go.
And those who were convicted, like, you know, who was it, Casper Weinberger, were simply forgiven by George H.W. Bush.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Part of them all. Hey,
like, they committed treason, literally treason. They committed treason. They, you know, unconstitutional and highest power, ranking power. No one got in any trouble for it whatsoever. But Beyonce lip syncing at the inaugural.
Yeah, major news story.
That's a news story.
It's a news story.
I mean, now, not that the Iran-Contra didn't get a lot of coverage, but really no one got in any real trouble for it. You know, Oliver North went on to have a very lucrative career.
Well, I think they were somewhat embarrassed by it. I think historians will look upon Reagan as being like, that was a real black eye to his administration.
Well, now if Texas has its way. As long as they're controlling the history books, Reagan will be a saint.
Well, I mean, I think those...
Now, other things that the Santelli character was involved in, he made sure that the special prosecutor at the time stopped investigating the people who were also involved in Iran-Contra, because, you know, you can't have them asking awkward questions. Several years later, he made sure that the special prosecutor who was looking into Clinton's Whitewater scandal, which was a non-scandal, that particular special prosecutor was not inclined to follow up on it because there was nothing there. So Santelli,
he was doing his job, basically.
Yeah, Santelli got rid of him and replaced him with Ken Starr, who of course went on to.
No, wait, Santelli, what position did he have that he could, like, replace one?
I'm not sure, but he was involved in it. He was involved in getting rid of the other one and having Ken Starr put in. He had to
have been part of the Reagan administration, or was he, or somebody else outside?
At the time, he might have been. Okay. So that was, you know, that was a whole thing. He got Ken Starr in there so Ken Starr can do his little hit job. Fishing, yeah, serious fishing.
$45 million fishing expedition,
but $100,000. The Clinton State Department spent $100,000.
One thing I just want to say quickly about what you had said, and that is when you talk about people who think that Democrats and Republicans are the same. And
you mean the fucking idiots.
Yeah, and when they're liberals who say it, or people who have liberal positions, even though they call themselves independents, when you ask them about everything, they should be voting for Democrats. The best analogy I've ever heard is, it's like letting a pedophile watch your children because your babysitter was 15 minutes late. You know, and that's the case every time. They're like, oh, they're exactly the same. No, they're not. There are several degrees difference. Burning your hand on the stove is not the same as falling into the sun. It's not the same thing. These are different things. They both both hurt, but one is going to kill you, and one just, you know, oh, ow, I burned my hand.
But I don't want to vote for the lesser of two evils.
Then we know you've never had sex with anyone.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I got to hear this one. Go ahead. Flesh that one out.
Come on. You know, whenever you've had sex with anybody, you're picking the lesser of two evils. I'm not
having sex with a supermodel,
with Christine Brinkley. So you know you're not.
But it's morally wrong to vote for the lesser of two evils. Which, of course, my response nowadays, and I got this from another website, and I read it, and I was like, you know what? That's a perfect explanation of it. Voting for the lesser of two evils. Okay, so if I give you a choice of 10 concentration camps or 5 concentration camps, and you decide, well, I'm not going to vote for either one,
Always-
then I'm going to go for the 10, you are now morally culpable for me going for the 10.
I want to see how most of these people make their money. If they don't believe in picking the lesser of two evils, what do they do for a living? I'm sure it's exactly what they used to draw pictures of when they were a kid, saying they want to grow up and be a firefighter.
Oh,
You know?
I tell people, look, just vote for the guy who best represents your interests, and that's it. And that guy has your.
Well, no, even then,
Because
because
it's hard.
Jill Stein's not going to
Look
get
at that.
elected. She may be closer to what I
Granted.
actually think, but
Granted.
she's not going to get elected, so therefore she's not going to help.
All
She
right.
will get Mitt Romney elected.
Yes, she will probably
Well,
get
again,
elected.
She would have gotten Mitt Romney
I
elected.
think like Bill Buckley said, National Review founder said, vote for the best person. Okay, if you're a conservative, vote for the best person who represents your interests, who can get elected.
Yeah.
And you can apply the same rule in reverse. Obviously, vote for the Democrat that you like, who has the best shot.
It's nice to have high ideals, but if your high ideals get nothing done, then they
Let me
haven't
tell
helped
you.
you.
Yeah, if you're gonna crash and burn, at least I have my principles. So.
Here's what drives me the craziest about the Jill Stein crowd. Is that when you say to these people, when you try to explain to them logically the laws of mathematics, that Jill Stein cannot win an election and the only thing they can do is throw it to a Republican. When you say to them, all you need to do is support the idea of instant runoffs. So that if the candidate you want doesn't make it, your vote can count towards your second choice.
Right.
And if you try to explain the math of that to
but
them...
there won't be a runoff because you have too many
No,
parties.
instant runoffs. Please do some research on that. We'll talk.
And that's why we call him the fat, smug bastard.
Because he's just about to say something he didn't know what he was talking about.
All right,
No.
explain to me, please.
Instant runoffs means you put on
Please
the first...
proceed.
On the ballot.
Proceed, Glenn.
Instant
Proceed, Glenn.
runoff means you put on the ballot that day of the election who your second choice is, and it's instantly tabulated. So you don't have a second election. You don't have to go back. So if you vote for Jill Stein, and Jill Stein doesn't get a majority of the votes, her votes are canceled, and all of the people who voted for Jill Stein get their vote counted towards the second choice.
okay.
Okay, that's an instant runoff, which is not what you thought I was talking about. So... in that case, you could vote for Jill Stein.
The smugness oozes.
And you could still get Obama over Romney, even if you think Obama is the lesser of two evils. But if you try to explain this to people and explain the math to them, it shows that really what these people are is lazy. They don't really want to get involved. They don't want to think. If you try and get them to think just that 5 minutes long enough to understand what instant runoff voting is, they don't want to be bothered.
Yeah, but a lot of people say, I want Jill Stein. I don't really give a damn about the other people.
Then you're an idiot.
Well,
If you don't understand the difference, if you want Jill Stein and you don't understand the difference between Obama and Romney, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry.
Then a lot of people say, F it, I'm not going to.
Well,
if Jill Stein can't win,
and that's
can't
why-
possibly win,
And that's why I
and my vote
insult
will be
them.
for nothing, then
If
forget
you,
about it.
let me tell you something. All of these people, if I said to them, how much do you want your salary? $100,000. Okay, you can't have $100,000. Would you rather have $70,000 or $30,000? They'll know how to pick the better of two evils in that case. Okay? It's just a matter of being lazy and stupid. That's what it is.
People are lazy and stupid.
There. Goddamn liberals. Anyway. We're really making a conservative propaganda video here. No, not really. Alright, so...
Good old angry liberalism. That's what we need.
Speaking of being an angry liberal, the GOP's election rigging scheme does not seem to be going well. I am not convinced, however. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, shame on you. It's actually been in the regular news.
Well, first of all, in all fairness, there's like 5 election rigging schemes. This is the one they would have had the most chance of getting to work.
I'm talking about Virginia, right?
The Electoral College.
So they're
Right.
splitting the electoral vote of blue states.
Right.
But
Not red
but
states.
only blue states.
Only
Yeah.
blue
Yeah.
states. Because if you tried to do this in Texas, or if you tried to do this in, I don't know, other
They
red
flip
states.
back.
Arizona or
Yeah.
any other place, yeah.
They would be like, no, you can't do that.
You have
That's
to have an
not
all or
true."
nothing. You can't just have selective. No, in all fairness, Democrats don't have clean hands either. They tried the same thing in North Carolina because there is sizable blue
Did they?
area. Yeah, they did. And
What, the Electoral College?
yes, and Republicans have been trying to do this for California for the longest time because
Oh,
they figure, hey,
yeah.
California is a bastion from Democrats, and if they could just siphon off enough Republicans from it, it would be much less.
So what they're talking
Electoral
about
votes.
here, the reason that the Republicans still have the House is that they gerrymandered the congressional district so badly that I mean, you have like all the
so goodly, so well, I should say.
Well, no, the problem is we've got better and better computers doing it.
Yeah, they squeeze.
They used to have to do it by hand.
Yeah, they squeeze the Democrats into little itty bitty tiny sections, and then they have these huge, expansive red districts. Now, this is legal. It's called gerrymandering, and it's legal. But the problem with that is that it gives land more of a vote than people.
Well, no, you can do it the other. I mean, the thing is, the way gerrymandering works is that you make sure that every Democrat who's getting elected is getting elected with 99 or 100% of the vote.
Right.
So you're concentrating as many Democrats as you possibly can.
3 or 4 uncontested
into one
areas.
place,
Yeah.
and then you're saying, okay, we'll make the Republican districts so that 55, they'll get 55% Republican vote, and
55-60% usual.
the best way to understand it is to look at the little boxes in the Wikipedia gerrymandering article.
Right.
If you look at those boxes, they'll show you how it works.
But even if Democrats outnumber Republicans, say 3-2.
You can read the districts.
It doesn't really matter.
And the problem is liberals tend to be concentrated in cities.
Right.
The other problem is
with the cities, hands down, with all the metropolitan areas, the suburban areas and
right.
the
The
rural
suburbans
areas,
and the rural tend to be conservative.
and you'll have a delegation of overwhelmingly Republican.
Yeah, it doesn't matter though that they live in cities. If you look at the New York State Assembly and the way they gerrymandered, because the Assembly used to gerrymander their seats, so the Democrats would control the Assembly forever. New York State, same state, right? But the Senate used to gerrymander its seats so that Republicans would control the Senate forever. And, they were both gerrymandered so heavily that both firmly controlled each of those chambers in the same state. So it's not really so much about city versus rural. It's more about how to get the math to work your way. And how, you want to make the minority party you want to fill their districts with their people. So that you don't have to fight them off in other districts. That's what gerrymandering is about.
No, but
to be fair, the Democrats have also done so in Illinois and California, and anywhere else they've been successful. I mean, that's just the way it is.
But now what they did was they gerrymandered so heavily that even though the majority state voted Democratic, the Republicans won the majority of the House seats.
Even though they lost the popular vote in the House.
Right. And they did this in several states, and this is why the popular vote, the Republicans lost the popular vote by 1.1 million votes.
Which is a lot of votes.
A lot of, especially for House seats, because some of those seats could be decided by 10, 20 votes.
Right.
So 1.1 million votes is a huge amount. And still, the House stayed in Republican hands. And that's only going to get worse.
Despite of all the voter suppression efforts, too.
Yes, and they're, right now, a rough estimate of how many votes Florida lost is 200,000 votes.
Right.
Oh, one of the ways it gets worse is by Republicans changing the rules whenever they feel like it. So it used to be the only time you redistricted a state was right after the census came out. And then Republicans redistricted the states they were in control of when the census came out. And then in places like Texas, where they didn't have absolute control until later, they said, "Oh, we're gonna redistrict on an off year because we feel like it." They just change the rules whenever it suits them.
And apparently they got away with it. I mean,
they did get away with it.
Well, it also helps to have a lot of Republican judges. They help you get away with these things.
But also,
again, this is why the parties are not the same.
It helps to have a Democratic National Party that's not going to run campaign ads on it. That's not going to let people know exactly what happened in Texas. The way Democrats made it, national Democrats let the Texas Democrats look like whiny crybabies. They didn't really step in and say, "Hey, this is a big deal."
Well, what the Republicans are doing now is they're trying to apply what they did to the House to the national. They're trying to move it up to the presidential election, where now they have these districts that are gerrymandered, and instead of the states being winner take all, they're going to go by, 7 districts went for Romney, or whoever the next person's going to be, Chris Christie. So therefore, those 7 electoral points are going to go to the Republican, and the rest of them will go to the Democrat, and whichever one has more gets the extra 2 for the state, instead of having a winner take all.
Again, it wouldn't offend me, but if you can't just pick and choose, you have to either nationally or nowhere. There's 2 states who do proportion their votes. Personally, I think they shouldn't be allowed to do that. Like Maine and I think Colorado or Nebraska rather. Yeah, personally, I don't think they should be allowed to do that. Personally, but that's me.
But I mean, if you look on Think Progress, like in Michigan sent let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 9 of their 14 seats went to Republicans. Obama won there by 9.5% of the popular vote. Okay, that's an enormous discrepancy.
Now, the one thing that they should have up on the Think Progress thing that they don't is how many people voted for those House seats. What was the margin of victory for the House seats themselves, not just the presidency. But I'd be curious to see. I would bet that with the 9.5 margin of victory for Obama, the irony is a majority
of there are probably a lot of squeakers.
No, I would say the Michiganders. I would be willing to bet that there was at least 5% victory of Democrats over Republicans in those House races if you put the whole state together, right? So I would be willing to bet that there was a 5% advantage. Now I don't have the facts in front of me, but I mean that would be a big difference, right?
Well, if Obama carried the state by that margin, I'm sure for those Republicans to have survived that, you must have had a lot of really, really close races there. Like we're talking like 50,
again, I don't
50, 49, 52, 48.
I don't think it's about
races.
Close races. I think it's about gerrymandering.
Yeah, it's all about gerrymandering.
In fact, one of the things that Chuck Todd drives me crazy on MSNBC every time he talks about this,
or every time he just talks.
Well, specifically about this, every time he says, "Well, Republicans in all those districts, they got like 55% of the vote." And they did. Like if you look at the Republican House races, they got 50%. That's gerrymandering.
Yes.
That's how gerrymandering works. So yes, they got a commanding majority in each House seat. But they lost the popular vote in the House.
They get about 55-60% across the board, so they know exactly how to cut it.
Right.
So they all kind of share that pie.
What they're talking about, if they did this if they had done this all for the 2012 election, Romney would have won, despite losing the popular vote by like 5 million votes. The Republican, he still would have been the president because the Electoral College would have went to him, which means that this is completely rigging the election. This isn't having a proper election anymore. The Electoral College they're looking to abuse it. Now, several of these states that are suggesting it, specifically it's Florida, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Wisconsin, all these swing states.
And all governed by Republicans.
All governed by Republicans. They're the ones that are tossing the ideas around.
How convenient. Yeah.
But they're starting to back off on it because they're getting a lot of pressure now. The problem is, for me, is if these guys hold on to these, if they hold on to state legislatures in 2014, which they very may well, because they, gerrymandered the shit out of the state, and that was the whole point, is that they're just going to wait until a few months before the election and just do it. And by the time it's all said and done, they'll go to Supreme Court. Supreme Court will say, we'll give this one to the Republicans too. We're used to this already.
Right.
And that'll be it. We'll have a Republican president despite him losing to Hillary Clinton by 6 or 7 million votes, at least, because she's going to stomp whoever she runs against.
You never know. She may not.
4 years is a lot of time.
Yeah, we'll pull the tape 4 years from now. Oh, remember Hillary? We all thought Hillary Clinton was.
I don't know. Yeah. She keeps getting voted the most popular woman on the planet 7 years running now. She wasn't even in office. She was a senator 3 years ago, but no one, she wasn't world famous 4 years ago.
You might find out 2 years from now that she's been using live kittens as tampons. I'm just saying.
They're very absorbent, okay?
We were celebrating the presidency of Martin O'Malley, Who's that?
Hey, they ain't going to put no Irishman in there.
I really liked our choice for governor there until he turned out to be a whoremonger.
Yeah, well, what can you do? All right, Glenn's gonna do a quick soliloquy about some guy named Manti Teo. I don't even know.
I thought we were going to talk about this because we didn't have time. But the Manti Teo thing. For those of you who've been paying attention to the news,
I haven't. I have no idea what this is about.
This football player.
How could you? That's all they talk about.
I completely avoided it.
Rigging elections. Who cares?
I didn't know Kim Kardashian was pregnant until, I don't know, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, by the way,
recent appointments overturned. Who cares? It's
the
all
mainstream
about
media
Manti
cares
Teo.
way more about Manti Teo than anything we've just talked about. They've been obsessed over the fact that this guy got caught in a scam where he had an online relationship with this woman, considered her his girlfriend, and She told him that she had cancer, and supposedly she had died from the cancer, and he was very upset about it. And then the media found out that it was in fact a trick played on him, that this was part of a scandal. And
so why is this news?
Thank you.
Well,
It's not news.
that's exactly why I want to talk about it.
It's
I want to
not
talk about it
news.
because it's not news.
It's not news.
And the thing is this. First of all, they tried to make it sound like at first he was in on it. That was the way they reported it in the beginning.
Still not news.
But the real issue I have with it is that this is the way we look at football players and basketball players and sports figures. Is any poor people who find a way to make money doing something, they don't really deserve the money. So we treat them like animals. And we have to know everything about their personal lives because, they haven't really earned it. So they have to be extra good people. They have to be special people. We have to scrutinize their character and everything they do. You never hear this with a CEO. If a CEO someplace has something go on with his sex life or his love life, you will never hear it reported.
Few dead hookers.
Yeah, you will never hear it reported because there's an entirely different dynamic.
Thailand sex tours.
Because he's making money he didn't earn. The same way that if you look at sports stars, they obviously generate the money they earn.
Oh, but Manti Te'o isn't earning money. He's a college student.
Right. Okay. But they treat it that way because he's in the animal stable for the animals that are go on and make money.
He's part of the patriarchy.
No, they treat it like he's special because he's going to be a draft pick, and like he better show that he's going to deserve this money.
This is a media manufactured story all the way. It's
but
like,
you're not getting what I'm saying. It's a class issue.
Okay.
It's a class issue. He's being treated differently than other people, and again, it's because of money. Even though he's not making money right now, it's because he's going to earn six figures if he keeps going in the direction he's going.
Okay.
And because he's an animal and he's not a human being, they scrutinize him differently than they scrutinize other people who make a lot of money in our society whose personal lives we're not allowed to know about.
Well,
man,
yes and no, because
a little bit of a jump there, Glenn.
Yes
and no, because there's still celebrities like Paris Hilton, and she didn't earn her money, but she's a blue blood, so therefore she would normally escape the scrutiny you're talking about.
Another one they cover.
No, see, I'm not talking about
Paris
Hilton and Kim Kardashian. I'm talking about their parents. You'll never hear about what their parents do. Paris Hilton's father could stick a dead cat up a hooker's vagina, and you won't hear about it because he made the money.
You're a freak.
I don't know what Glenn's thing about cats and vaginas is. I know there's like this.
There's a lot of things going on with cats and vaginas that you don't know about, America.
All right.
But I'm just saying,
disclaimer. Don't let the kids listen.
Yeah, it's true that they treat the children who inherit wealth differently. I'm talking about, you're never going to hear this said about a CEO, right? I'm not talking about Manti Te'o's children. I'm not talking about any football player's children. I'm talking about they themselves are never going to get. They always get a different kind of scrutiny than other people who make lots of money in our society. You're never going to hear about Warren Buffett's sex life. Never going to come up. He could be doing anything and you wouldn't know about it.
Let's assume he has one.
Forbes was a leather queen, and you didn't hear about it until after he died because finally it became some kind of a scandal.
Steve who?
Malcolm Forbes.
Oh, Malcolm Forbes.
Think about it, won't you?
He's a motorcycle riding leather queen. You didn't find that out until after.
We're going to wrap this up. Murphy's got to go to work masterminding the New York Times liberalness for tomorrow. All right. Signing off. Adios. This is your host, the Filthy Liberal Scum, saying good night.
Good night.
The Mike Murphy.
Good night.
There's vaginas, but no cats in my foxhole.
Alrighty then. Good night, America.